Hello everyone, this is Rob Goodhue. We're in the Harbor Ridge kitchen and we're going to have some fun today. I'm Chef Rob, and today we have a nice treat. I get a lot of requests for dishes, kind of the mustard-glazed salmon, okay? And I've been getting a lot of requests for how to cook rice on the stovetop properly. So I'm going to go troubleshoot some of those dishes. And also, I think this mustard-glazed salmon is a great dish for when you're trying to introduce your kids or grandkids to fish and vegetables. It's a no-brainer. It's very easy, and they love it. It's a great way for them to experiment with other dishes. So let's get started. I always start with the items that are going to take the longest to cook. And for us today, that's going to be our rice pilaf, okay? So I have a nice saucepan here, okay? Not too big, not too small. I'm going to get that on medium-high heat, okay? And then I'm going to infuse my water here. I have some water. I'm going to keep it real simple. I'm not going to do chicken stock today, although chicken stock is a great substitute. I'm going to bring up, this is 1 3/4 cups of water. I'm going to give it a little pinch of salt. I have a fresh bay leaf, adds a lot of flavor. If you can get, I bruised it a little bit so that it has a nice strong flavor. And then I'm just going to take a couple sprigs of fresh thyme, and I'm going to infuse that water and get it nice and hot. Now, to make the pilaf, we're going to start off by sweating a little bit of diced onion. I put about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in the pan. And I'm going to do a small dice on my onion. And then my oil gets nice and hot. I like to use a bench scraper to get all these loose bits in the pan and get it off my cutting board. All right, so I've got my onions in there. You can hear the sizzle. I'm going to get those on high heat and cook them until they get nice and tender. I also like to take 1 peeled garlic clove, and I'm just going to crush that with my hand. Put that in there as well. All right, so I'm going to cook exactly 1 cup of jasmine rice, okay? And always get a nice brand of jasmine rice. I like Thai jasmine rice. It's very light and fluffy, and it's more consistent with the cooking. So what I'm going to do, I got exactly 1 cup of jasmine rice. As my onions get tender, I'm going to add them to the pan, and I'm going to toast my rice. So this is, a pilaf is a little bit different than simply steaming the rice. Okay, steaming the rice is just using liquid. So a pilaf, you get a little bit of nuttiness from toasting the rice, and you also get some herbs and a little bit of that onion flavor in the rice, which is really nice. So here you can see my rice is starting to get a little toasty, and my water is up to a boil. Now, once again, this is 1 cup of rice and 1 3/4 cups of water. I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to pull the rice back for a minute. All right, so another little trick of the trade is I like to use my trusty parchment paper to make what the French call a cartouche, or sometimes they call it papillote. But what we're going to do, I take it and I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to fold it in half again, and then I'm going to take the short side And I'm going to fold that kind of almost like I'm making a paper airplane, and I'm going to fold that over several times. Okay? And however wide my pan is, I'm going to put the point in the middle of the rice pan, okay? And wherever the edge is, that's where I'm going to cut. So I'm going to end up with a circular piece of paper like so, and this is going to help me keep the steam in there as my rice cooks. Now we've toasted our rice nice, and it smells, it almost has like a nutty aroma to it, and it's nice and hot. You can hear the sizzle, but you don't want to over brown it, okay? So that's hot. My water's hot. I'm going to add my water. And now we're going to bring that up to a rapid boil, okay? We're going to grab our cartouche, and I'm going to lay it right on top of my rice. And then I'm going to put a few small spoons in there, and that's going to help keep my cartouche sealed on the edges. We brought it up to a nice boil. And I'm actually going to take a plate. If you have a nice tight-fitting lid, that's great. I don't have any lids right now, so I'm going to use a plate. And I'm going to turn the heat down to low. Okay, and now I'm going to cook this rice for exactly 20 minutes. We're going to cook it for 20 minutes, and then we're going to come back to it. What we're going to do next is we're going to cook our cherry tomatoes. And a lot of kids, sometimes they don't really like tomatoes. So what I do is I like to roast them in the oven for a little while, and I like to sprinkle just a touch of sugar because, you know, not everyone has access to garden fresh, perfect summer tomatoes. So this is a good way to mix a little bit of that bright flavor into your dish. Okay, so right here I have my grape tomatoes that I've cut in half. Okay, and I'm just going to put them in the saute pan. No big deal. I'm going to cut up a little bit of fresh thyme. I love my fresh thyme. Okay. I'm going to sprinkle that right on top. Just a little pinch of sugar, because these tomatoes are going to dry in the oven, and when they do that, the flavors are going to concentrate and bring out the bright flavor of those tomatoes. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil, a touch of pepper, and just a little pinch of salt. Okay? All right. Now, I'm just going to put them face up. And you're going to see they're going to get they're going to shrink a little bit, and they're going to get a little wrinkly, but the sugar and the salt and everything will concentrate, and they'll have a nice, intense flavor, which the kiddos really like. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to make the world famous mustard glaze. I have my trusty gloves on, and what I have here today, which is going to be really cool, is we're going to do the cedar plank style. So we get a little of the smokiness from the cedar plank. So first things first, I do a scoop of really equal parts of Dijon mustard, whole grain mustard, then I do the same amount of brown sugar, same amount of orange juice, and then I'm going to take a little bit of mint. Nice fresh mint. Oh, that's so nice. Right from the garden. We're just going to cut that into little strips. And that's going to give a little pop to this glaze. Okay? So we mix that up. And that's the base for the glaze. Now, what I do, the reason for the gloves is because when I'm handling the raw proteins, I like to keep my hands clean. And season it with salt. I'm going to flip it, season the other side. I'm not going to deal with pepper for this because the mustard glaze has a good intense flavor. So we don't need to add pepper to this. It'll get overpowered. I soaked this cedar plank board actually for 20 minutes in water. It helps it burn a little slower. I put a little pan spray on my cedar plank. I lay my salmon right on the cedar plank. And I'm going to do a nice little generous glaze. Okay. Don't worry about burning the cedar plank. It's going to burn. And it's going to fill your house up with that beautiful aroma. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sprinkle a little bit more brown sugar because we need that for the caramelization. And this is where a lot of people go wrong. They do the mustard glaze, but they don't do a little sugar on top. And it's a night and day difference when you get that caramelization with the fish. And trust me, the little ones are going to be wanting to eat salmon every Friday. All right, so now we're going to broil that. Now, in your oven at home, what I want you to do is before you start cooking this, I want you to put the rack on the top rack, okay? Make sure you have a rack below it, okay? Because what you're going to do is you're going to get the color first, and then you're going to finish cooking the salmon however you want, and by lowering it. But first you have to get the caramelization. So we're going to broil. I have an industrial broiler right here, and we're going to give that a go for a few minutes. All right, so we've been cooking the salmon under the broiler for about, I want to say 3 minutes. And look at that. You see that beautiful caramelization? Okay, there's a little bit of singeing from the cedar plank, but that's also going to help give it a little bit of that woody, smoky flavor. That's perfect. We're going to set that aside. Now, if you want your salmon well done, you just pop it in the oven, just put it on the lower rack of the oven, and cook it, close the oven door and cook it for an additional 3 to 4 minutes and let it rest. This salmon, by just broiling it, is going to be a perfect rare at 3 minutes of broiling because it's going to carry over cook on that cedar plank. I would say 5 minutes would be a perfect medium salmon, and 8 to 10 total cooking time would be good for a nice well done salmon. That smells delicious. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to cook our broccoli. And I think that a lot of us can, if we're being honest, we can say we've been overcooking broccoli for a long time. And the kiddos don't like that at all. So what I like to do is I like to get a little bit of caramelization on my broccoli. I cut it small, and then I have a few bells and whistles to put on it so that they really go for it. First, we're going to start off with just a little bit of olive oil in a nice hot pan. Okay, and we're going to add broccoli, and I cut it small. You know, when you eat broccoli, if it's a super big floret, it's not really very appetizing. So it's better when you cut it smaller. And like I said, especially for your younger diners. You want to hear that sizzle? And we're definitely going to season that with a little bit of salt. Just a pinch. Okay, a little bit of fresh pepper. Not too much. We don't want it to be spicy. We're just going to let that sit for a minute. By the way, a little word of advice when doing the cedar plank salmon, make sure to turn your smoke alarm off while you're cooking it and put your fan on. I've learned the hard way that that can be one smoky kitchen and a loud one after a few minutes. All right, so we got a little bit of color there. That's perfect, okay? Now what I have is I have just a splash of water, okay? I pull my pan back, I add my water. Now you probably have a nice fitting lid at home. I don't, so I'm just going to use a saute pan just for a minute to force that steam into the broccoli. And we're going to let that cook for about 30 seconds. We're not going to cook this broccoli too long because when it has that nice little crunch, it's much more appetizing. So this has been about 45 seconds to a minute actually. I'm going to take the lid off and give it a shake. I'm going to let the rest of that water evaporate. And also, you can, when you're cooking this, if you feel like and you have a little bit of white wine lying around, you can use white wine instead of water. It's just going to give it like a little bit more of a citrusy twang at the end, but it's really nice as well. I'm not going to finish this with butter. I'm going to keep it really light, but you can do that as well. All right. So it's got caramelization. It's got it's got some good bite to it still. And it's got some nice, vibrant green color. So what we're going to do is we're going to dress this up a little bit right now. I like to do a little bit of fresh grated Parmesan cheese. And I'm going to add a little bit of balsamic reduction, just a little drizzle. And this little combination of salty cheesiness and the sweet and sour from the broccoli, the balsamic reduction, that's going to give us some really tasty broccoli that the little ones definitely can't live without. All right, so it's been about 20 minutes. Our rice is ready. What we're going to do is we're going to take our plate off. Be careful, it's hot. And I'm going to take my cartouche off. And I'm going to fluff that rice. You see all that water has evaporated and cooked the rice. And I'm going to pull the thyme branches out. And if I can find that piece of garlic, I'm going to pull that out as well. Or you can leave it as a nice surprise for one of your guests. There it is. All right, so we have our beautiful rice. 20 minutes. Once it's done cooking for 20 minutes, you really want to fluff it and then let it rest with the lid on for another 5 to 10 minutes if possible. That way it will carry over cook. What I'm going to do, I got my little trusty ring mold because we want to do a nice fancy presentation. This rice smells so good. You can really smell like the thyme, the garlic, the bay leaf. All right. Got my beautifully caramelized salmon. Put that right in the middle. And now look at that. See that broccoli? Doesn't that look good? It's nice and bright green. If you make this for the grandkids, you can make this for yourself. It's really tasty. But I'm telling you, this is how I got my kids to eat, to fall in love with fish. And then I was able to move on to more exotic recipes, scampi crusts, miso glazes, and that kind of thing. So this is like a kid's fish dish 101. And so now it's been about a half hour and my tomatoes are ready. All right, and I cook them at about 325 degrees. And look, see how they've gotten like a little wrinkle? The flavors have concentrated a little bit. They've got a really nice flavor. What what we're going to do is we're just going to put one of those in between each of the broccoli. And if you really want to get the kids to love this dish, have them make a sample plate and then have them plate the dishes. Because I find that when kids play with their own food before they serve it, they're more inclined to eat it and try new things. They become much more adventurous because they feel like they had a hand in making it. All right. And then I'm just going to do a little bit of olive oil around each dish. Voila! Mustard glazed cedar plank salmon with jasmine rice pilaf, caramelized broccoli, and oven dried grape tomatoes. Enjoy.
Thank you. How is it?
Good.
Delish?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you like best about it?
I like the sauce on it. It's
Yeah?
good.
It is good. The veggies are good.
Mhm.
The fish is cooked perfectly. It's good. Would you order it again? Yeah?